number we are, but for our subcommittee, public safety, judiciary and public safety, it is my complete intention to stay as close to the time schedule as possible. So I would ask that, and most of y'all know me, there tends to be some questions. Give us in your presentation the top of the line points you want to make. Our budget officers are great, and so I know they've been given the information. Also, we have new Senator Dupree, who is sitting in, learning the ropes, I guess you'd say. So thank you, Senator, for being here. And then also one of our members, Senator Sparks, if his text was any indication to me, he's in the delivery room right now. So, so that's where he is. I told him, I think you're excused from the subcommittee meeting to do that. So I hope he doesn't mind me saying that, but that's a good thing for them. So we're going to get right into public defender, please, Andre. You know what? We're fine. You sitting right there.
Good afternoon. I will.
And let me say this before you start. I think probably the best way on the presentation, and I know the highlight, maybe if you spend, so basically there's an allotment of 15 to 20 minutes. So if you give us the 5 to 7 minute overview, then we'll probably have some questions. And then if you don't take all your time, we'll either, be done with you, or we may have some more questions. So
if I don't take all my time, that'll be a first. So, but I'll try. I'm gonna stay on time. Thank you all for having us. The Office of the State Public Defender, essentially, we got the LBR recommendation funds our agency, the core functions of our agency, basically level funding. That we got pay raises for the attorneys and investigators because we're connected with the DA pay raises last year. That's included in the LBR recommendation. So very appreciative of that. What the issues that the new initiatives that we have started in the last couple of years, and particularly the one that just got started, is what we're here to talk about. The pilot project that was funded last year by you, beginning, obviously, the funding came in the end of June, and we were ready to start putting things together in July. And that funding was from capital expense funds. So that's not in our recommendation. And that's the first, and that's really the two key things that I'm going to talk about today, is something dealing with Hinds County and the capital city initiative that's been going on for a few years that we're involved in. But this pilot project, we hit the ground. We had been doing site visits and meeting with local judges and clerks and lawyers before and during the session last year. So we were ready to go. A nonprofit formed. If you turn the second, you have a one-pager in your material. The nonprofit formed, people that I think you're probably familiar with, some of them. Nick Bain is the chair of the board. Forrest Thigpen is one of the members of the board, and Omodari Jupiter, who is the federal defender for Mississippi, is on the board. And they hired Richard Carter, and I'll say Richard is here with us today. Richard's got almost 20 years of experience as a criminal defense lawyer in that district. I came close to persuading Richard to take the job. Judge Loper is the one who pushed him over and why he's here today. He, well respected in the district and had worked with us in developing the plan. And just to remind you that some of this plan is, this is targeted to rural areas that have never had public defense organized in their areas anywhere in Mississippi. We've got some public defender offices, but in more populated areas. So this is identifying problems that the Bar Association and the law schools have identified. We don't have enough lawyers in rural areas. And so we wanted to, part of this initiative was to bring lawyers in. And Richard's been able to do that in the 2 lawyers he hired. Now, ideally, it's designed to have 4 lawyers. He has not been able to hire the experienced lawyer for the team. He's hired 2 young lawyers. One moved from Hattiesburg. No offense, Senator. We still want a local lawyer, but he was in, and then the other lawyer was practicing outside the district. They're both less than 5 years of experience. So Richard's doing a lot of sort of courtroom babysitting too right now and training up these lawyers. The other lawyer grew up in Atala County and wanted to come back to the district, and there wasn't a job for him there. So when we opened this, Stephen got a job that he could come back and move in, live in the district and work in the district. And also an investigator who had just graduated with her master's degree in social work and would have probably left Mississippi if this opportunity wasn't there. So we're accomplishing that in this office. And then I think it's, you're in the office now, right? They have gotten office space on the square. Richard closed down his private practice to take this, and vacant office space on the square in Kosciuszko. The landlord, the owner of the building, renovated it. They've moved into that space. And so that's sort of what everything we envisioned when we talked with the Deason Center, and I should say Pam Metzger from the Deason Center is here. Pam is the director of the Deason Criminal Justice System at SMU. And they are working across the country trying to develop this day one representation in rural areas. They're in Kansas. We met some people in Oklahoma when we were out in Dallas recently. So trying to really build up rural areas. This project, they formed a nonprofit, hired a director, hired staff, and took their first case on October 1. So they're moving fast. What you see, the data points in the one pager, or what the number of cases that they've taken since day one of the office, and most of those, 37 of the 44 cases were cases where they met the client on day one. They went into the jail to see the client before initial appearance. And that's the goal. We believe that if this happens, if you do defense this way, you are going to move cases through the system faster, not just for the sake of time, but because we think everybody's going to agree that there are better results coming out of it, but cutting down on jail time and ultimately we think lower prison sentences on the end, or more appropriate prison sentences. So they're picking up cases, and part of what was in the bill you passed, my appropriations bill, there was an amendment made in the House to make clear that we were not going to displace any of the local public defenders. So they're still taking cases in order to study this, because I said, we believe this is what's going to happen. We want to be able to prove it. And that's where the Deason Center is supporting us. They're going to do the data analysis. So this project is heavy on collecting data, getting in early, and we are getting really good cooperation from the local sheriffs and jailers, so that we get notification of when somebody's brought in, so we can get down there and represent them. The how cases are assigned is a random selection. They're working the randomization is happening in 4 counties: Grenada, Montgomery, Winston, and Atala, the larger counties, higher volume case counties. The other three counties, we're only picking up conflict cases because there's just not enough cases in those three counties to do the randomization. So they're picking up the majority of their cases as what, hopefully day one cases. And then in these other counties, they're relieving the county from having to pay for a conflict lawyer where the local public defender can't do the case. All three of those counties only have one public defender, part-time public defender in the county. So if there's two people arrested, they've got to conflict a case out, and they are picking those cases out. So that's where, and we've sort of, you have in our initial request where the funding was primarily looking at where it's going to be no more than the funding that goes to the DA's offices. This sort of updated document you have is I was at their board meeting last night, and there's some adjustments, and we'll say one thing is the pay for these assistants is much lower than if they were an assistant district attorney.
So let me ask you on that before you move on to there. So two things, which first, it sounds to me like based on what you told us last year, this is working like we would hope it would work. And I would say from what we learned with the youth court and the AG's office and the CPS, having attorneys at the start makes a heck of a lot of difference for a lot of reasons. So that's good. The so the funding for that was through capital expense. Are you saying it needs to be through your budget this year? And have you included that? And then I see you have year 2 of the day 1 pilot. Is that included what you're doing now?
We have, yes, in our request that we submitted in July, we were actually asking for it to be general funds.
Okay.
But where the money
as opposed to capital expense.
Okay.
Okay.
But it does not matter to me which fund the money comes out of. I have found that whether it's federal money or private money or general fund money or local money, it's all spent the same way. So it doesn't matter to me. I'm bringing it to your attention that it's not in the LBR because it's capital expense fund. And so that's either where we work out, where you work out it comes from doesn't matter, but that money's not in the LBR. And similarly, in the Hinds County project, and there's a one pager in there, and Hinds County, we know a lot more today than we knew when 1020 passed about what impact the 160 to 180 additional police officers in Jackson was going to have, the additional judges. And so now working with them over the last 3 years, we know that of the total number of cases they have in their office, this is specific to the public defender's office, and we didn't have data at that level last year, that about 31% originate from an arrest by a state agency, either Capitol Police or MBN, or they get a lot of arrests coming through CCID court from university police, university hospital. And so we're looking at I believe that a bill will be filed by one of the local senators, and on the other side, a representative, to do what is in that one pager, to add a couple of lawyers and support staff. And so I have a budget proposal, if that passes, what they would need to fund those positions. Even without this amendment that adds to it, the way it's funded right now is 446,000 is in general fund, and 60,000, it's actually 103 because there was a reappropriation in capital expense fund. So, and again, so we would have, if we got LBR, we would have the money for the 446 for the 3 lawyers, but nothing beyond that. because the rest of that is funded through capital expense. And of course, nothing close to the 525,000. That would include the 60,000. So basically, the top line number is, I think it's 972 for what they're asking for in Hinds County is 5 lawyers, an investigator, and a legal secretary, and the office expenses for that. So we've got 446. We're asking for if that passes, they need an additional 525 to fund the additional positions and fully fund the positions they have.
Okay, and then I see on your page, because I'd like you to talk about this, the statewide youth court reforms, understanding that we've been in discussions, and I noticed you have 450 to 10 million. Of course, that depends on, it's a wide range, but that depends on what comes out.
Exactly.
But how have you calculated? And you said depending on court changes and phase-in time.
Yeah. So we have been working with DHS, Division of Youth Services, the Child Protection Services, the youth court judges, all working with the AOC and the experts from the AOC on this bigger how to change youth court. And we support everything that is coming out of those expert recommendations. That includes the reorganization of the courts.
And just for the record, for people, there's been discussion of a statewide youth court, but also the governor has put forward a plan for additional chancellors to serve as, which are constitutional in nature or not in nature, they are, to serve as youth court, with the whole idea is to address that. So
right. And so when we're looking at the $10 million, that was to, if you went with we'll call it the governor's plan. I think it's a good plan. It would create 25 youth court positions in the 20 Chancery Court districts, because some of the districts have a lot more volume work, so they would have extra judges. So we looked at working with DHS, who's got the data on the number of children coming through now, AOC data from my kids, which there needs to be some work there, and there's some recommendations on that. But we do have that data, and particularly CPS. And, they've been doing a pilot project on getting lawyers that are representing, they're working directly for the agency. And so the 10 million would be basically split between the two sides. We do believe that on the delinquency side, that would only cover the primary lawyer. It wouldn't cover conflicts, that the counties would still have to be providing a significant number, just because we think the volume is going to be a lot bigger. But that would be to place one lawyer in each of these courts. And so how we came up with the money distribution is based on the model of CPS and their lawyers. We started paying $75 an hour to private contractors to do some of the work. We have some lawyers based at legal service offices, Hattiesburg, Gulfport, and here in Jackson. We think that's a good model because it's more efficient. It costs less to do it, the volume, but it's not a viable option for the whole state. So we've got about 10 in what we call family defense. We have about 10 lawyers that contract with us who are currently doing this work all over the state. We think we probably are only covering about 20% of the workload. And obviously that's, most of that is being funded by the counties. We also have some concerns about, you passed a law 2 years ago that mandated everybody in the courtroom have a lawyer, and we think that that's not necessarily happening everywhere.
But I can tell you from what I've been told, it is one of the things I've been told by lawyers and judges and others that that's been one of the best things we've done.
I agree. I think, and that it's sort of unique that everybody that's on every side of the issue, getting a bunch of lawyers in a room and having them not fight is like,
Preach it.
yeah, that's like, never happens. I think everybody, there was a lot of adjustment that needed. It was about an 8 or 10 year pilot project just on the family defense lawyers that now that everybody has gotten accustomed and found out this is not only not going to destroy the system, it's actually going to get resolution to cases. Same sort of concept that we have on the criminal side. You got when the lawyers are working representing their clients, but everybody's got a lawyer and they're all working to the same ends. That you get not only do you get justice, you get justice faster. And we do think that a lot of that's happening. What we haven't seen yet is the 4E funding, which is on the family defense side. There is federal money that can be drawn down, and that will probably come up with CPS. They have to be the one that draws it down, and they are doing the negotiation with Washington to get that money so that they can distribute it. So I would say you look at the $5 million on family defense, if we got that money, that drawdown, it's only going to be, it's roughly be about 20 to 25% reimbursement because of a formula they came up with in DC to figure out how 50% could be reduced to 23%. And I would say that only Andrea Sanders can explain that to you. But
Okay, Andre, I'm going to stop you right in the name of time.
Sure.
So, and see if any committee members have questions. Your first one, Senator. Yeah, okay. Pull in the microphone. Press.
Went green. Thank you, sir. National workload standards. When you compare and you say that you're data driven, so if you look at the national workload standards as attorneys to clients, where do you stand with that national standard?
well, we actually had that discussion earlier today, and I have told people that we work with outside of Mississippi that I'm not disagreeing with the national workload standards. I just don't think we can go from where we are today to the national workload standards. So I'm not suggesting that the workload that we're doing with 4 lawyers in this pilot would necessarily meet those standards. But I think what we have looked at historically as we've tried to create these reforms is that there was the best study I've seen, and there have been a lot of workload studies. Next to the national workload study was one that was done by Texas A&M in Texas, and we have always looked at that as a good guide. And so I think we look at things like Richard picked up 2 homicide cases. That goes into, is he picking up too many cases? Because those cases, including one of them being a juvenile and the extra work that goes into that. So we are looking at this from a weighted workload standard as opposed to just case numbers. But realistically, I think even the prosecutors will tell you that they are above standard and the number of cases. We've got too many cases and not enough lawyers in Mississippi. I will tell you though that I think our pilot today and some of the work that we're doing in Hinds County is the best at looking at data and trying to be as close to an ideal as we can get.
But I had other questions, but I'm not.
Yeah, please. Okay. So trying to stay as best on time. Thank you, Andre. If there's any additional ones, please submit it to us. And, as we begin this process. So thank you.
I'm across the street. I'll come
Yeah,
over anytime.
Thank you. Next is the Attorney General's office. And while they're doing that, in my mind, I've allotted a little more time for the Attorney General's office looking at what we have, so.
Thank you.
Okay, all yours.
Thank you. And I appreciate the time element of this, and I have never been accused of talking too slowly. So I do have some remarks that are all geared in support of the Attorney General's budget request and some changes that we are asking for. But good afternoon, Chairman Hobson, Senators. I am Doug Miracle, Deputy Attorney General. I appreciate this opportunity to present you further details about our FY 2027 budget. And we are grateful for your support over the last several years, and we are equally grateful for the opportunity to be a partner with you on behalf of Mississippians. Attorney General Fitch is sorry she is unable to attend today. She is hosting a leadership from the American and Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services today. That team from the Trump administration is here in Jackson to talk with the General, CPS Commissioner Andrea Sanders, and others about the needs of our foster children. And this is something I'll touch on later in this testimony. As it is for General Fitch, improving the well-being of foster children and helping them along the pathway to their forever homes remains a high priority for the Trump administration, as well as those of us here in Mississippi. As I will detail later, our office is working diligently to reduce the time and children spend in state custody, improve the process for foster families, and step in to provide stability for children in need and assist adolescents emancipating from their foster to transition successfully to independence. As this is National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, these administration officials are here in Jackson to learn more about how we are to meet the particular needs of those foster children who are the victims of trafficking and other abuse. Through the Victims of Human Trafficking and Commercial Sexual Exploitation Fund, which the legislature established in 2020, and our office is proud to administer, the state provides assistance to service organizations that assist these adolescents to recover from trauma, from their abuse, complete their education, and learn the life skills that could give them a fighting chance at adulthood. The Attorney General will take these special guests to visit with the Southern Christian Services today, a human trafficking fund grantee that runs one of these programs in partnership with the state, and learn more about the continuum of care that is so important in the success towards independent living. As for our budget request, for FY 2027, we are requesting $45,480,833, which includes $35,312,935 in general funds. This total is $915,359 less than our fiscal year 2026 total appropriation of $46,396,192. This is the second year in a row we have requested a decrease in our total funding. Our request represents a strategic balancing of the needs of the state for the services we provide and the needs of the state for fiscal responsibility. We have carefully considered what resources are essential for the performance of the Attorney General's constitutional and statutory mandates that are reflected in our request. Specifically, you will see that while we are requesting a reduction in total funding, we have requested an increase in our salary line of $1,584,641, and this is primarily for the merit-based salary progressions we are asking for. In the alternative to this increase in our salary line, we ask the agency be given the authority to move money between lines in our budget so that we can increase the total salary funding through cost savings through other anticipated expenses.
Doug, I'm going to interrupt you
Yep.
right there because I would like the subcommittee members to hear, because I actually spoke with the Attorney General and you
Yep.
about the salaries and where things stood as you compare, and also SEC squared and the personnel board and all that. Could you,
Yes.
you know what I'm talking
I
about
do.
when we spoke. Can you tell the subcommittee
Yep.
that?
Yes, Senator. So one of the big challenges we're seeing is we know, I mean, we're not really trying to compete with private law firms, because even a private law firm salary today exceeds the statutory maximum of what we can pay at the Attorney General's office. But to your question, and this is encompassed in my testimony, we are losing very skilled attorneys at the Attorney General's office to other state agencies. So the competition that we are primarily concerned about is not losing them to private practice. We have been successful at recruiting high-quality attorneys from the private practice to come to us. But what happens is then they do such good work in our office and they get exposed to working or representing state agencies. There is a salary disparity. There are mechanisms in place that do not allow us to pay what other state agencies can pay them, who are maybe given a designation of a general counsel or given other deputy-related titles. So,
What is that mechanism?
well, all I can speak to specifically is what first of all, there's the Attorney General salary cap, right? So we're capped at the Attorney General statutory salary of $150,000. What I can say is last year, we lost more than 18 attorneys from our office to other state agencies and DA's office. So this isn't just on the civil side, this is also on the criminal side. And so when you talk about what mechanism is at issue, with the passage of HB 1509 in the 2025 legislative regular session, a full-time district attorney now makes more than the Attorney General by about $100. Under that same bill, an assistant district attorney with up to 5 years experience currently has a salary cap of $120,080. Only 14 attorneys in the Attorney General's office have a salary higher than that $120,000 figure. And they are the most senior attorneys who are leading divisions or in executive leadership. So it's really difficult to recruit and retain, whether it's civil or criminal, when an agency is, and I'm not, professing to be an expert on the budgets and, constraints of other agencies about how they're able to pay their attorneys. But what I can tell you is that we are constrained by the salary cap. We don't have the attorneys in our office that are at market under the SEC squared rubric that you referred to. We only have, and it's in my testimony, we only have a handful of attorneys that are at market, and they are at the lower echelons of experience level. So in SEC squared for attorneys, you have, you level 1, 2, 3, and then 4 are supervisors. So a level 3 attorney coming into the Attorney General's office, everybody's at least at the minimum, but then we're compressed with that experience level for what we can pay. And it's a twofold issue, Senator.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
are you saying that the more you're compressed at the higher level experienced
Yes, sir.
attorneys, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And how many years are we talking about? 15, 20?
Yes, sir. So I can say before I became deputy, I had the privilege of leading the civil litigation division for a number of years. And we are able to recruit for a number of reasons, service-minded attorneys who have said, I'm ready to leave private practice and come in. But what we're able to pay there, given our current construct, there's probably a $10,000 to $12,000, $15,000 difference between somebody with 25 and 30 years experience and somebody with, let's say 15 years experience. Because what we've tried to do in the litigation departments is have a law firm type model where you have younger attorneys who are getting started out, getting them courtroom experience, your midline attorneys who are, handling, complex cases, and then your senior attorneys. But I don't want to say this is just an SEC squared problem. It's really the funding. So we can't move money off that salary line. And I think this is something that General Fitch and you and I discussed recently, being able to move that money off the salary line, because right now we can't do that. So whatever that salary line says we can have for merit-based progressions, it doesn't allow us to get people to market. So I would see it as a twofold problem. One is the budget side of it, and then, trying to get people to a market level. Last year, so I would say that the two issues are, SEC squared puts out what we can pay a level 1, 2, 3, but we still have to have the ability within the budget to be able to do that. So those would be the two things. And I don't think we don't want to get into it today, but I think there's some suggestions we could make for instance, in our bill last year, what language we think needs to be, adjusted. That
I would
allow-
ask if you could send those suggestions to me and
Emily.
Chairman Hobson.
Chairman, yes, sir.
And if you have the budget officer's information,
I-
but I'll get it to them if
Yeah.
you send it to the two of us.
I'd be happy to do that. And there are probably a handful of markups that we've identified that we think would allow us then to.
Chairman Hobson I'll let Chairman Hobson have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Doug, thanks. Let me make sure I understand this clearly. I do understand the DA issue. And if you lost attorneys in your office to the DA, on the SEC Squared issue, I'm a little perplexed about it because I know the way that is set up.
Yeah.
An attorney with X years experience with a certain amount of expertise should not be getting paid. There is a slight cushion for each agency. You could do the same to, pull away an attorney from a particular agency if you wanted to, if you could offer that little slight bump to get them over. A lot of times they don't want to move if they like where they are. They don't want
Right.
to move for a $1,500, $2,000 pay raise. I do recognize, and this is, you're not unique in this way. I would say it's akin to maybe MDOT when it comes to engineers or nursing when it comes to nurses. You've got a ton of nurses or a ton of engineers, in this case, a ton of attorneys. And when one agency comes along to pluck out a good attorney, sometimes for that one attorney, they're able to bump at that $2,000 or so, and they're able to get that attorney, $2,000 or $3,000. You're experiencing that too, correct?
We are, but
It's not, go ahead
Yeah.
and finish that. Then
I
I
don't
gotta
mean
ask
to
you.
interrupt you.
No, no,
I
go
would
ahead.
suggest it may be higher than just they're leaving for a $2,000 bump. I mean,
They should be in the same level. If they're not, I want to know the instances. I need to see, I guess I'm getting to that point. I need
Yeah.
to see the instances if they're not classified the same,
Sure.
because we worked hard to try to get the classification levels where you're not rating one agency, to, getting all their people because you pay them a lot more money. If they're on that level, then they ought to be getting paid roughly the same thing.
we prepared a chart, and we can send that to you as well. We have a chart of the 18 that we lost this year to other state agencies. What I don't know as I sit here is how those were classified once they went to that other agency. I
Okay.
just know there are instances, and it may be anecdotal, where I hear, I don't want to leave the Attorney General's office. I love what I'm doing, but they're going to pay me $20,000 more
That shouldn't
at
be right.
this agency.
If you're finding that out, I want to know it.
Okay.
I need that information because that should not be happening.
Okay.
We worked hard to get away from that.
Yeah.
That happened years ago, which kind of leads to another point on the salary line, that we worked hard to make sure that we're keeping salary lines based on head counts or pins, however you want to reference them. So we're not having people pulling money out of other things, asking for money for operations and just sticking it to pay.
Yeah.
And obviously that's why we got SEC Squared set
Yeah.
up too, so that we have people that are getting paid the right amount. I think to me, your bigger dilemma is, it seems to me, unless you can provide information, and I'm not meaning to interrogate you, I just want to get them from, if it's happening, we didn't know about it. There's two bigger issues. One, that DA issue can certainly be an issue if people want to go back local. And the second thing would be, your compression and your salary, AG's salary line, and how that affects people that have lots of experience underneath her. Is that right?
And I think really what the Attorney General is asking for, particularly on that salary line question, is giving her the flexibility to make these internal decisions. Because we don't have a stair step within the Attorney General's office. But when we get an attorney who wants to leave private practice and come spend however many years with us, and brings 25 years experience, and I'll just throw out a number, and they're being paid $115,000, whether that's because of the budget constraints within our salary line. But I would say that there is a disconnect at present between what we're paying. For example, when I'm recruiting people and they see what the market rate we're paying, they go to SEC Squared, they go to the SBB's website, and they look at that and they think, well, I can do that. I can make that work. And then I have to disabuse them of that pretty quickly when they sit down and say, we don't have any attorneys at your experience level making that market salary. So we have a disconnect right now between what SEC Squared says is the market rate and what we're actually able to pay.
Yeah, and look, you're not, I hear you, but it's not uncommon, or you're not alone out there on that, because every other agency, unfortunately, we hear about that, because Most are going to be, there is some flexibility, as you know, within the budget, but there's not a lot.
Right.
But between the minimum and market, is going to be where most are. Every now and then you got somebody that just have to keep on, and you could pay them a little bit more, but there's a percentage increase you can have from year to year. So,
Yeah.
um,
Which actually, I think
and-
our
and
FTC
it's-
squared attorneys are not, they don't fall under the percent. Those are for non-attorneys at
Okay.
7% cap, I think, from year to year. So that in and of itself is not the problem. 10%, I think.
10%. Yeah, I think it's 10%.
But I would.
Okay, I just want to get the information so we and Chairman Wiggins, we can have good data. Because if we're seeing something like that happen, I want to know about it so we can
Yes, sir.
fix it.
Yes,
Thank-
sir. Thank you. We'll get
Thank
that
you.
to you.
Doug, and in terms of, in the interest of time, I'm sorry, I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
And we do have the Attorney General's and yours testimony, so we definitely have that. But I had a couple questions. One is if you could address, please, the status of the opioid settlements. And let me say, I received a copy of the recommendations from there. I will state from what I saw, it seemed, and there were different tiers of that. It was, as far as I was concerned, on the face, it seemed pretty straightforward and good to me. I think people would have questions, about, we don't have to get into the policy of it. I'm asking about the money and where that stands. And then the other question is, can you tell us what, if any, deficit requests you have on judgments and settlements? And I will say from my personal standpoint, that's always an issue for me because and I understand they fluctuate, but it always seems that we have that and want to know what that is.
Sure.
So those are the two questions I have in light of our time.
Yes, Senator. So as to the first question, you're right. So under the statute, we had by December 5th, I believe it was, to send the list. The Attorney General is the administrator. As you know, she's the chair, but we also administered it in conjunction with the voting members of the Opioid Settlement Committee. So that list that was presented to the legislature came through a vote of the voting members of the Opioid Council. They were tiered. They were scored further down the line through a subcommittee process of voting and non-voting members. And then the voting members of the council had the opportunity to review all that data and make any adjustments before taking the final vote to present that to the legislature. The amount of funds.
Uh,
I was just. It looks like 90 million,
Okay.
345 million in abatement and 14.8 million in other state funds, because you have the non-abatement portion that you'll be able to make awards on. So that's the current amount in the fund. And those funds, as you know, this year will probably be the largest year because of the way the settlement's structured. It's over an 18-year period, but we do expect as money will come in, but that will be a diminishing amount. So you probably have the biggest tranche of money at one time that you will see coming from the fund. So it is now up to the legislature to fund those as it sees fit. The council has completed its work for this funding cycle, and we will be gearing up next year for next year's funding cycle.
okay.
As to your second question on deficits and judgments, so we have what are typically the recurring wrongful incarceration cases that are paid out based on how many years the person was determined to be wrongfully incarcerated. Those are $50,000 a year. We have I just got a request to update that letter yesterday, and I'm working on that. We sent our initial letter in September, which had several items for outside counsel fees. General Fitch has worked extremely hard not to retain outside counsel, but we do so in several cases. And if I can take just a minute to make sure You all understand when we do outside counsel cases, it's either one, because of the size of the case, a systemic type case, or systemic prison litigation, mental health litigation, or it's because of specific expertise that attorneys may have. So our redistricting cases, the attorneys we use in those cases have been doing redistricting for 25 and 30 years. So we're leveraging their expertise in addition to AG attorneys. So those are going to be on the list. We are also looking at 2026 is probably trying at least one, if not two, of the 340B cases that we have successfully defended so far. But as we gear up for trial, we are going to be retaining outside counsel.
Who's brought those cases?
So it's all AstraZeneca, AbbVie, Pharma, which is the trade association for the pharmaceutical companies. They have all, so when you adopted the legislation 2 years ago to protect contract pharmacies and rural healthcare, the pharmaceutical industry came in and we have four separate lawsuits by the largest law firms in the country. They were all litigated. 3 of the 4 cases were litigated in front of District Judge Ogerton. He denied their preliminary injunctions, which was great because now that means our law is still on the books. But now we are in discovery and we are in litigation, and we're probably looking at least 2 trials for next year. So we will be retaining an outside firm to assist us with that litigation. It's attorneys who have deep knowledge in healthcare litigation and have been working with some of these same rural healthcare entities. So that will be coming in our next update to LBO.
I appreciate you saying that, and this isn't your bailiwick, it was the legislature's, but the reason yes, the 340B program, we passed that law. Let me say, the reason we're in this situation is because the federal government has failed to do what they need to do to reinterpret, and that means Congress, and that means whichever agency, CMMS or somebody, they failed to do it. So now we're having to suffer expenses of legal fees because the federal government and Congress has not redefined what the 340B program is. And it's been a concerted plan by Big Pharma to inundate the states with the dollars they have. So I appreciate y'all defending it successfully.
Well, thank you. And heretofore, we've been able to do it with our in-house attorneys. But as we gear up for full-blown trial, it's just not in the best interest. We just don't have the manpower or the resources without outside counsel. So those will be the additions that I will be sending over here very shortly. So we're probably looking at a total of $400,000 or $500,000 for next fiscal year in deficit requests for outside counsel fees. I may be missing one, but I think it's in that neighborhood. We don't have any excessive judgments. There will be some agencies submitting their deficit requests directly in some settlements that will be seeking deficits, but those are coming from the agency itself. Those are not coming through the Attorney General's deficit appropriation budget.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was just handed this, and just to hit a couple things before I turn it over to the committee for questions. So on the TPR that y'all have been working on, I noticed that it's down 41%, if I'm reading that right. In terms of custody, that's
So-
on your first page. Oh, that was in Forest County?
Yeah, we have updated numbers. So I think when
Okay.
I testified before the Women, Family and Children Subcommittee, we didn't have year-end numbers. So my testimony and the charts that we've handed out now have year-end numbers. So we are, ranging from 71% decrease in Jackson County, 41% decrease in Forest County, 67% decrease in Pearl River, Lowndes, 57% decrease, and 40% decrease in Scott County. And just for the benefit of the whole committee, that is the pilot project. The Attorney General's office was given 5 counties in the CPS pilot project, where we have attorneys from the very start of a TPR proceeding throughout the end of it. So we have one attorney, and just in this pilot project, these numbers that I just read to you, those are the decrease in the amount of time a case is spending from filing to final judgment, and it's dramatic, and it has been incredibly successful, and we're very happy to be a part of it, and we'd like to see it grow, because the judges and everybody we've talked to, anecdotally said having that continuity has been a game changer, and it's certainly a game changer. Now these children are ready for adoption and to find their forever home. So that is part of my prepared testimony, and you have, through those charts, the year-end data. So
Thank you for that work on that. And then my last question is, or comment is, the deficit request on the human trafficking
Yes.
victims fund. I know the House was putting in, I guess, their deficit request. What is the total amount? Just so y'all, I stand where I'm at, but if you could present it to the committee here.
So we have in our budget, we have a 2.5 million request, but the 1.5 million deficit request is for the tranche of funding that we did not receive last year. And in the special session, that was vetoed because it was determined to be outside the call of the special session. So we ended up not getting that funding last year. The fund currently has, for this year, approximately $1 million, and that's from the court assessments that have built up over a period of years. Last year, you changed the law, which we hope is going to have some impact here, where instead of that assessment being mandatory, and we found that judges were not necessarily always imposing the max fine because there were other assessments, there's now a sliding scale in place where they can assess a lower amount. We're hoping with that sliding scale, it will ultimately increase the total pool. But so we used the $1 million in our first round of grant funding for this year, and recipients got about 40%. And then the rest of their request was contingent upon getting this $1.5 million deficit request. We had a great meeting with you all last fall about this. We understand there is a desire for this to be self-sustaining potentially, but I would just say, once this $1 million from the assessments that has built up over the last several years is exhausted, that there will not be sufficient money. So we have the 2.5 million going forward, but we have the 1.5 million deficit request that we are putting forth to fund what was for last year's, essentially. And just so I'm clear, we funded what we could fund out of that $1 million cash on hand to the recipients, and then they would get the remainder of their grant request if we get that $1.5 million deficit appropriation. If we don't, then we won't have any more funds for last year's grant cycle.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that. To be fair, we had that good meeting, the appropriators. It is at that time, it's the position certainly of us now, me, and at that time was it's to be self-sustaining. I think, and y'all are doing, as I said then, y'all are doing your job, which is presenting to us. And the way I put it is demand outstrips supply. But we've also pointed out in that meeting that y'all also run the Crime Victims Compensation Fund that's there. So you're doing what you need to be doing, in my opinion, to ask for the deficit. But the fact of the matter is, it's our position that it was intended to be self-sustaining, and everything that we've gotten is we're not headed that way. And, if that's the case, some decisions are going to have to be made. I think the legislature made that decision and the governor made the decision during the special session. So I appreciate your work on that.
Yes.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to committee members. Any questions? No? No? Okay, well, good. Then, so with that, if you have a closing statement or whatever, we're right on time. So thank you very much.
Well, great. I appreciate that. And everything we said in our written testimony that we didn't talk about today is we have an incredible team. The success rate is unparalleled. Our civil folks are running at 97% success rate. Our criminal appeals folks are running at 93% success rate. General Scott Stewart, our Solicitor General, will be presenting twice this term at the U.S. Supreme Court. So, we are doing the work that you all have hired us to do, and defending the laws that you're passing. We're doing it with tremendous success. And the Attorney General just asked for your consideration in these budget matters that will allow us to continue to grow and to just keep doing a better job at what we're doing.
Thank you. If y'all can get what what Chairman Hobson was asking for, send that to us on the salary stuff and all that. That would be great. So
Yes,
we'll work on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Appreciate it. Next is going to be judicial performance. While you're, I'll say this, I know I have one question right off the bat. So you can work that. It is, I know we gave the pen yet last year for youth court and I guess as, review of youth court judges and so forth, and I particularly received some questions when we presented the budget on the Senate floor. So could you please talk about that when you're doing your remarks and everything? Thank you.
Here to do that even. So it wasn't even a curveball that you threw to me. Good afternoon, Chairman.
Pull the microphone closer.
I'm Rachel Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of Judicial Performance Commission, or as I used to tell my mama, the agency that prosecutes shady judges, somewhat colloquially. Fortunately, we are awfully close in our budget numbers, and Emily and I have talked, and I think we're getting close to those. We're only about $80,000 off on our budget and numbers, and I think, as I said, we've got that on lock to address those things. But if you'll indulge me, I'll take the majority of the time and explain to you what we've been doing and how great of a job my staff has been doing. First of all, just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, when I started at the commission about a decade ago, we received somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 complaints a year. And when we actually hit the 200 mark, it was kind of oh, wow, we were super busy this year. In calendar year 2025, we received 657 complaints on judges. So I look back at the 200 number and I think, oh gosh, that sure was cute. That sure was cute with those 200.
Well,
numbers.
it's the obvious question. Why do you think that dramatic increase?
I would like to take some credit that is also given by the auditor's office that it is easy to get to us now. It didn't used to be as easy to get to us. Our operations are automated now. It's somewhat automated. I'm a little tech, not illiterate, but not as savvy as our tech guys. So whenever you want to complain about a judge, you can go on your phone, on our website right now. You can fill out a complaint, maybe 30 seconds to get it actually in the chute, and it is populated perhaps not real time, but awfully close to real time in our office. So there's not a lag time between you call and say that something has been going on with a judge that you need to complain about, and we send you a paper copy of a complaint, then you turn around and mail it back in. We in turn, key it into our system, then it gets onto the agenda, then it goes before the commission. All of that happens literally in minutes now. And again, I provided you all a copy of the auditor's report that gave us a shout out for the automation that we have been able to do in our office that makes us more efficient. It decreases the number of dollars that we spend, getting those things in, out. But what that report doesn't address, and they wouldn't know, is that gives folks out in the field, so to speak, the folks who are appearing before the judges, better access to who we are and what we do. We also completed 10 trainings at judicial conferences or legal conferences last year, where we tell folks who we are, because unless someone tells you who we are and what we do, you don't know. I hate to confess that I had been litigating for 15 years and didn't know that judicial performance existed, and I didn't know what they did. And even worse than that, I'd sat on a municipal bench as a judge and didn't know who the commission was or what they did, much less what I was held to the standard for doing. Fortunately, the standards are pretty easy to meet. You don't necessarily have to know what they are. If you're doing the right thing, you're going to get there. But all of that having been said, we try to get the word out because it is important to us that the people who appear before the judges actually get the best version of the judicial system that they could get. So out of those 657 complaints, we also, because we're so user-friendly, received 335 addendums. I like to call those the and, because you may have told me that the judge's demeanor was problematic, but you may have had another appearance in front of the judge. So there might be an and addendum that says, and also on this date, he did these things or she did these things that violated the canons. So that 335 is an additional document or piece of information that we field in addition to the 675. To give you an idea of the gamut of topics that are complained about, anything that you can imagine, we've had a complaint on it. So it could be, I didn't think I should have been in court. Well, that perhaps might not be the judge's fault. It could be that the judge was mean to me because they made me do X, Y, and Z. Well, X, Y, and Z may have been the appropriate sanction for whatever was done. So that too might not be an instance of judicial misconduct. It could be that. It could be accusing the judge of a crime. It could be accusing the judge of using his or her influence. And in support of that, you might send us videotapes. Last year, we had 3 sex tapes that we had to watch that were related to a complaint on a judge's conduct. I do not enjoy doing those things, but it's part of the job. But I say all of that to say, if you can think it, if you can dream it, it's been in a complaint. I could just about promise you there. Out of those 675 complaints, 29 of those complaints went to formal complaints. So it's about a public math here, about 5% of them that went to formal complaints. And the formal complaint is that there has been a probable cause determination that more likely than not, there has been an instance of misconduct, judicial misconduct. And from there, the formal complaint proceeds in front of the full commission. In addition to those, we fielded at the office 2,901 phone calls that were either folks asking about, hey, can a judge do X, Y, Z? Is this an instance of misconduct? If it isn't, then that saves us processing a complaint, assuming that those folks take our word for it and don't subsequently file one. It could also be a judge calling, asking for assistance. Those are the ones that we are particularly proud of because we like to take a community policing approach to it. If you want to get to the right answer, we want to help get you there because that's what's best for the folks who are appearing in front of you. So there is not a state court judge in the state of Mississippi that doesn't have my personal cell phone number. And at any given time, they will reach out and ask questions. They also have access to other members' cell phone numbers. Those calls or text or emails are not captured in this number. These are just the office lines that we've captured those numbers. I would like to think that that number is at least half again, the correct amount when you consider all of our personal numbers and emails. Out of those, we did 230 investigations. That isn't to say that the others weren't completed complaints, but frequently on its face, you can tell that it is not an instance of judicial misconduct, which is easy. Those are dispensed with quickly. So 230 investigations were completed. Certainly the 29 formal complaints had investigations prior to reaching the formal complaints stage. We did hire a new employee in October of last year. You all did give us another pen and the funding for that. We took our time to make sure that we had the right person in that place. And she started October 1 and has been on the job 62 days. In that 62 days, she has managed to visit 15 youth court judges or referees to make contact with the folks. We are taking a wide approach at of her audit. Obviously, it's not exactly a performance audit. It's certainly not a financial audit, but it's how are you doing this? And is it working? What do you think that you're doing well? Why do you think it's working well? So that she can also be a conduit of information, or if she goes and sees Judge A on Monday and they have a great program for a particular thing, and she sees Judge C on Wednesday and they're having trouble with it. Hey, do you know Judge A down in so-and-so county? They have a great program. So she is focused on not just getting information, but also carrying information of best practices between the youth court judges. Thus far, I think we have had 3 complaints that we have received, that we have processed as a complaint based on things that she has either observed or has been reported to her in going out into the field. That doesn't sound like a large number, but when you consider that we didn't have a lot of access to youth court matters before, and we didn't have the staffing, we didn't have the resources to go out and do kind of an audit, if you will, of how's this working. That's a pretty significant number when you're looking at basically a couple of months worth of work there.
Are you
So-
receiving cooperation as much as you can in such a situation?
Yes, yes, sir. So there has not been, there's been a warm welcome from the court staff, to include the judges, the clerks, as you know, in youth courts, there's a plethora of positions. They may be called different things in different counties. So I'm not going to try and say, I'm not going to name the titles, but court
Yes,
staff.
I understand.
I'll just say court staff have always been super helpful. Since she has started, they are receiving her well. AOC has been particularly helpful and beneficial to us because, of course, you all gave them mandates that requires them to get specific information. Well, once they have it, if they can give it to us, that sure does help. And so their agency has been great about working with us in going forward. There aren't any trends that I can identify yet. hopefully there will be one, maybe two, and hopefully at least half of those will be good trends that we'll be able to report back, but more to follow on that. We just don't have all of the information that we expect to get there on that. That having been said,
Now, yeah, and your budget request for this year,
still under $1 million, sir.
okay?
Cheapest agency in the state, best I can tell.
Be careful.
Bargain. Best bargain. How about that? Most, most valuable for what you pay for it. This probably is going to be the last year that I'll be able to say that. We're sneaking up close to $1 million, but
Wasn't there a backlog of cases or something we were trying to address?
so there were a couple of years ago, and a couple of
Right.
years ago, we went about, I think, 6 without a vehicle. And I came in here every year telling you all about our car that you put it in R and you continued going straight ahead. But we have now, for a year now, been enjoying our nice new car that when you put it in P, you don't go anywhere. When you put it in R, you go
Don't
backwards. and
say
when you-
diligence doesn't pay off.
Well, you all funded it a couple of years before we actually were able to purchase it thanks to COVID. But the minute they had it, then we did actually purchase it, and it is doing just fine. So thank you for that. Thank you for the additional pin. Another thing that I have given you all is the breakdown by county. Of course, you know, the only public information that I can give is something that has gone to the Supreme Court, but I can give statistical data. And I give that by county because I know you all are particularly interested in your specific counties and how your folks are doing. So there is the raw number of complaints that judges in that area have received and the percentage of total complaints from particular areas. They are not broken down by court type because some of you all have smaller districts, and some of the counties, well, perhaps there's only one chancellor in that area. So if there's one complaint, you know who got that complaint. So I'm not able to give any more specific information with regard to the type of courts, but these are the overall numbers for each of the counties. And I couldn't get the data by your districts, but
That's okay.
you know where your county.
I'm going to turn it over to Senator Hickman. He has questions.
Yep, that was actually a perfect segue, and you may not be able to answer this, and I'm fine with you saying you can't answer, but I had a question about these numbers, and I guess my question is, how are you determining what county? Does the judge have to preside in that county? If in my chancery district, if there are 6 cases, where would you place a complaint on one of those judges? Like, how do you do that?
Great question, because there is overlap. So if we'll use me as an example. So if my district, my chancery district has 3 counties, if the complaint arises out of a Hinds County case, will be reported under Hinds County. So not necessarily where I was sitting or where all of my counties are, but the actual underlying case, where that case came from.
And
Is how the counties are.
that's perfect. That's what I want to know. Thank you. And one last question. Do you have, and I think you may have presented this before, and again, since we're so good on budget, I'm asking you kind of questions outside of the budget, but I think you gave us like a breakdown. I don't know if you have it at like from which state courts, like this many came from Chancery, this many came from Circuit, this many came from that court. Do you have that breakdown?
I do have it broken down. I don't know that I have it with me. I do not have it.
You can send it to us.
Okay, I'd be glad to do that.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
You bet. And just for quick reference, it is almost always in our annual report that is on our website. So you should be able to, at a moment's notice, find it from last year, but you won't have it for this year yet, but I'll get you the current numbers and send that to you. Pending any other questions you all have, I'll just say thank you and give you your time back.
One question. So just making sure, so your total request is 998,910 with general funds of 971,925.
Yes, sir. And I'm glad you pointed that out. There has been in the past a special fund appropriation, and we will zero that out this year. So whatever, we don't care how the sausage is made. Where you all get the money is y'all's business. And so we'll stay out of that. But just to give you a heads up that our special fund is about to be depleted. Having said that, we do receive fines from time to time. They are sporadic at best. And I think we were talking yesterday, I think the largest one that I've seen is $5,000.
Okay.
So we're not talking about a lot of money.
Yes, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my own knowledge, how many employees do you have, and are they all attorneys? You kind of give me a brief breakdown of that.
Yes, sir. So we have six employees now. We have an investigator and an office manager, and the rest of us are lawyers.
You have one investigator,
One
and
investigator.
how many attorneys?
So we're up to 4 now. Wait, is
Okay.
that right? 4, including me. 4.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, okay, we are actually ahead of schedule, which is great. And so if the district attorney, DA Buckley's here, we'll go ahead with that. And not to Christie, we could go ahead and get workers' comp here. Thank you, Senator. Thank you. Thanks for being with us. So you may know the drill, but like we said earlier, give us the 10-minute spiel and all that, but I'm sure we'll have questions. So punch your button there. There you go.
Okay. Again, my name is Brian Buckley. I'm an assistant district attorney for Forest and Perry counties. I'm the president of the Mississippi Prosecutors Association. I've worked with the last 2 presidents as vice president and incoming president. That's Crosby Parker from the coast and Kaylin McHugh from Greenville. I went through with Amy Mason last week our budget that we have submitted here to you. As you know, MPA is unique in that there are 23 judicial districts. And while I would love to speak for all 3 of those judicial districts, they are all sort of their own kingdoms, as we know.
They all have their individual opinions, that's good.
That's right. And so in those districts vary from 1 county to up to 7 counties based on population. So for example, Forest County, we have 2, and that's about the equivalent of, other counties in that population area. The MPA is organized, very organized, with our committees and bylaws and our meetings, and we try to present a united front here on any bills that we have. But there are some, like last year's redistricting. It wasn't in MPA's interest to get involved in that, because what's good for one district might be bad for another district. So we're left to kind of fight their own battles on that.
But I'm sorry, and I'm not going to belabor this point, but if I may say but every DA is funded by the state.
They are.
Which is why we look at that as a consistent thing. And I understand that, but when it comes down to funding, it's all state dollars to DAs.
That's
So,
correct.
Yeah.
And there are counties that are more fortunate than others that can statutorily provide their own assistant district attorneys and fund it themselves. We have one additional one for that. And I know, like, for example, Madison and Rankin have many. The budget here, it represents 93% of it goes to the salaries of the district attorney, the assistant district attorneys, the investigators, and the victim assistant coordinators. That leaves about 7 to 6% of that then goes to travel and office expense, as outlined here in the budget. As you know, the payment for assistant district attorneys is a tiered approach based on years of experience, 0 to 5, 5 to 15 years, more than 15 years. So that is essentially it. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have about the budget. again, I've been through it and I've tried to understand it as best I can, and I think I've got a good handle on it.
I have a couple. So, we did go through the judicial redistricting. We've also added some we've added a fair amount of assistant DAs throughout the state. We've also last year, we added criminal investigators. So can you just say how that's going? If there's anything, negative that we need to be looking at or anything like that? And just to be fair, if I may, I've had different DAs reach out and ask for additional assistant DAs. So I think we understood as we redistricted that, we would have to look at things. So whatever you can comment on that.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. First off, thank you, and it's been a great help with the increase of salary for the investigators. We've been able to attract more qualified individuals. Before, we were losing them to lateral hires to police departments because we couldn't keep up. When I first started 28 years ago, that was the top tiers of work up as an investigator to work at the DA's office because it was the highest pay. Only thing higher was either going to be a chief or an assistant chief. It had outpaced it greatly. So now we're able to retain more, and we are back into that fold of having investigators that have years of experience as a detective, as an investigator, and they've worked their way up the chain, which makes them invaluable to our office. Now, regarding the redistricting, as you can imagine at the conferences, we hear the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of that. But I think what you may see is some individual districts feeling like they have taken on more of a load and they don't have enough assistant DAs to handle that. I'm not speaking for them, for example, but I know we've talked with Jones County who picked up George and some other, and I think they're down to like 3 ADAs there, whereas DA Myers lost a county but didn't lose any ADAs and gained a judge, and things like that. So, there may need to be some tweaking on it. For example, for instance, our district, or the district I'm in, we are fine. Perry and Forest take up as much as we can handle. If it was another county, we would have had to ask for another ADA or two. But I think you're going to see little tweaks like that. And I think we may even be losing a judicial district in, I'd say 2027 or something like that. So I don't know how that's going to shake out.
Okay. Let's see. I do want to, and I think this is appropriate to bring up because and get y'all's opinion, but last year, so now the DA salaries have been connected to the judge's salary increase. Should there be an increase and all that? Is there, certainly everybody would appreciate should any raises occur, but there's been discussion about us like either a step or not a pause, but looking at that. Do you have any thoughts or positions on that?
Are you asking if the judges get a raise this year, do we get an additional?
Well, there has been discussion, yes, and it's out in the public sphere. The judges have asked for a raise.
Right.
We're having those discussions. So if it's been connected, then yes, that's why we're having these discussions. So.
Well, I'll say this, Chairman, we are very excited about the raise, very grateful for the raise that we got being tied back into the judges from this last year. As you know, it was funded for 6 months on the fiscal year. And our whole thing is we want to be tied to the judges. That's how we always were. When I first started, everything was going fine. I'm not sure when it kind of got split up like that. But we were tied percentage-wise, the DA was, to a certain judge, and the ADAs are tied to the percentage of what the DA makes based on their years of experience and things of that nature. So it was just important for us we weren't so much saying we want to raise, we'll take it, don't get me wrong, but we want to be tied to the judges. That's important to us.
Yeah, somewhere along the way, and I don't even know, it got separated, but that's where y'all are now, right?
Right.
Okay. Okay. Questions? Nope. Look at that, straight to the point. So thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
And as we go through, if you have any other information, be sure to submit it to us. Thank you. Appreciate it. We are rolling along. We have Workers' Comp Commission. Do we have? Okay. Okay, we will rest. We'll recess for 10 minutes. Okay, so we will recess and till they get here. We'll recess 10 minutes if they can and take on as soon as they get here. Okay, thank you. Thanks. Okay, thank y'all, and thank you for coming early. We actually are ahead of schedule, so that's not a bad thing. So thank you. And what I said, 10 minutes presentation. I think we'll have I know we'll have some questions, so we'll go with that. So thank you. All yours. Press yeah.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We do appreciate the opportunity to come and present. I just want for anybody that doesn't know, I'm Commissioner Formby. I'm the chairman of the Workers' Comp Commission. This is Commissioner Harkins and Commissioner Henry. One thing that is different this year is that we have a new executive director after 31 years. So Ray Miner has retired and our new executive director.
Something look different.
Well, James Swanner is our new director. I'd love to give him a great introduction, but what I'm going to say is that he has 30 years in the insurance business before he came to us. Probably the best part of his resume may be the most recent, and that is we had 31 qualified applicants, narrowed it down to about 8, interviewed 6, and hired him. So he is, we think he's already doing a great job and will. And I'm going to let him do the actual budget presentation, not because we can't, but because we want to throw him to the dogs and let him answer all your questions. So he's going to actually do that. There are 2 points that I want to make before I let James start. And y'all know this, but I just want it to be stated. First, as you know very well, the budget request that we have will be funded by the insurance companies that sell workers' comp in the state. You know, we assess them. And so if we ask for 1 million or 20 million, when we get through, we will go assess those insurance companies. And 100% of those companies are out of state. We do have some self-insurance in the state that we assess, but they support what we do. Nationally, our assessments are kind of right in the middle. We're way below the highest and, somewhere in the middle. They're kind of grouped up. But every insurance company that sells workers' comp in a state is assessed by that state. So when we assess one, they get assessments from everywhere. So that's thing one, is that our budget money comes from elsewhere. Doesn't make us less conservative with it. We really try to be fiscally conservative with our money. The second thing is, and this is huge, this is so important, y'all have been so good to us, House too, and the governor. We have received the budgets that we have asked for every year for the last 4, maybe 5 or 6, but the last 4 for sure, including the pay raises that we asked for in those budgets. We would get the money, and then, and this is huge, then the personnel board would say we couldn't spend it because we didn't have a line item of authorization in the bill. That changed in 2013, the way that's handled. So every year we've got money for pay raises. He's going to elaborate on that we couldn't spend. So the one thing I'm really asking, Mr. Chairman, is that if you approve our budget, and we've got a copy in that packet of the 2013 bill that had that language in it. So we really need authorization to spend it. We gave it back for a few years. Last year, we went through and gave some agency raises to get them to market value. So 2 things, we're going to get a revenue from somewhere else and give y'all what's left over. And then we cannot, if it's your desire for us to do what we're asking to do, then we're going to need that line item. Okay. This time I turn it over to James Swanner and he's going to tack the numbers.
Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
before you do that, Mr. Chairman, you had some numbers about cases you've handled and all those things?
So just so y'all know what we do. So, you don't think we're just sitting over there doing nothing. We've got 8 judges. Those 8 judges are real judges. They wear robes. They sit in courts all over the state. There are about 13,000 injuries a year. Of those 13,000, some 2,500 to 3,000 come to the Workers' Comp Commission. So first they come through those judges. And then those judges adjudicate and either end it or they bring them on up to us as the appeals court. So the 3 of us sit as a judicial court every Monday, just about. That's not, not every Monday, but 2 cases a Monday is a rule. Between 80 and 100 a year on Monday, we actually hear appeals. And then if we are appealed, we're appealed to the Supreme Court, who hands it down to the appellate court. So after those, we also, the 3 of us, have to handle every settlement. So if it's one of those 3,000 and it's not adjudicated but settled, 2 of us have to sign off on the settlement, and that's to the tune of about 60 a week. So we do that, and then we run the agency. So we adjudicate and we run the agency, and then the 3 of us regulate the industry. And that's 100% of the self-insured, and then along with the Department of Insurance on the rest. So just want you to know, we're asking for something we hadn't gotten in 13 years, but we work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark commented on a bunch of things that were on my list, so I'll breeze through some of that. But our budget request this year is about $6.5 million. That's up 5% from 26, which was 6.2. The LBO recommended number is about 4% less than our request. The good news is we are flat on our budget in every area except salaries and fringe benefits. That's a 4% increase over the LBO recommendation. This is entirely related to a much needed increase for our leadership, our chairman, commissioners, administrative law judges, and the executive director. The numbers are detailed in that second section on the front page. The big issue that we have faced, this exact budget has been approved for the last 4 years. Again, as Mr. Formby said, Chairman Formby said, we have simply missed out on having the proper language in the appropriations bill in order to be allowed to spend that money. The exact language we need is in Appendix C in the 2013 bill, which was the last time there was a significant increase. To give you an idea of what I mean by that, it's from 2014 to 22, there were no increases for the leadership. Since that time, there have been 2 increases totaling 7%. If you average that out over 13 years, it's 0.5% of an increase a year. In contrast, the best comparison we can give are Chancery and Circuit Court judges. They've received in that same period of time a 32% increase in their salary. So it's not equitable. Our judges have the same duties. They settle over 300 cases a year. They have motion hearings, settlement conferences. They do mediations, and they travel a good bit, spend the night in hotels a good bit. The State Personnel Board market salary for the commissioners, 157. He's currently earning $30,000 less than that. I'm sorry, for the chairman is 172, 194. He's currently 40,000 below that, and the commissioners are at 157, 784 for market rate, and they're 30,000 below that. During that same period of time, from 2014 to 25, the inflation was 39%. Compare that to our 7% increase over that time. These leadership people are making less money today than they were in 2013 based on the value of the dollar. So it is a problem that is not the legislature's fault. They have approved this 4 years in a row. We have simply not procedurally done what we needed to do to get the ball across the goal line. And that's what one of my goals this year as the new executive director is to have it handled properly. If we do not get this increase, we're going to face a significant challenge in recruiting talent. We have several administrative law judges that are eligible for retirement and two of our commissioners that could retire when they're ready. So the governor and our commissioners are going to face a challenge recruiting people that are capable of doing the job if we don't have a salary that's at least competitive with the state market. And we are not at this time. So I can say that also the Work Comp Commission, we are spreading this out over 700 insurance companies, fully funded by them. So this is not going to create any impact on them of significance. This is something that should be important to all of our legislators because work comp is required by every company with over 5 employees, and every citizen that pays taxes in the state of Mississippi that has a job is covered under some form of work comp. These people have a very important job. We are an economic driver for the state. When big companies come here, they ask several questions, and one of the top questions they look at is our work comp and our laws and our case law, and it is very good here
If I
because
could
we have
interrupt
good
one
leadership.
second. You heard that James came from the private sector. He was with AmFed and some other insurance companies. When companies were looking to move here or looking to buy insurance here, did they ever ask you about the cost and predictability of workers' compensation?
Yes, sir.
Mark, can you speak? We got people listening on the stream or whatever, and they,
Apparently
Yeah.
not enough. I hated to interrupt James Swanner right then, our executive director, but as I was saying, he had 30 years in the private sector in the insurance business with AmFed and other companies, national companies. He has worked all around the country. And what I was asking him is that when he had dealt with national employers who were thinking about moving or expanding to Mississippi, which he has done through the insurance side, was he ever asked about the cost and predictability and affordability of workers' compensation in Mississippi? That was my question, Mr. Chairman. With your indulgence, I would like for him to answer that.
Sure. I have on several occasions, and it is very important. It is a fixed, there's no way around it. It's statutory. You have to have coverage if you have 5 or more employees. And it is a cost of doing business until you have an injury, and then it is very real. And it is important that our administrative law judges and commissioners are qualified to protect the injured worker and do what's right and fair for the employers and carriers of our state. On both sides, this is an important issue to them. And that is why I've never had an insurance company complain about paying for their own regulation. And it is nice that they do that. So they would be completely in favor of making sure we have highly qualified people, and we are far behind the market at this point. The resolution to the problem is a simple paragraph in section 9 of the 2013 bill. If that paragraph is added to this year's bill, we will have the authority needed for the state personnel board to let us spend the money that has been approved 4 years in a row for what it was intended for. Our employees, our administrative employees, are reasonably close to market rate. Our commissioners and administrative law judges are not even close. Okay. I will yield the floor back to Mark.
Not the only thing that I will add, and Mr. Swanner made mention of our competition, we're not competing. When we talk about these salaries, we're not competing with the free market. We're competing with state agencies. And we went through, you and I had this discussion with court reporters. We were losing our court reporters to other state agencies at one time. So, one of the things that's changed is that we do have Mr. Swanner and, our last executive director, who all know and love, had done it year after year after year until we kind of got to a point, me too, that we were just doing it year after year. Otherwise, we would have really kind of figured this out quicker as to why it wasn't happening and all that. So we figured it out last year. He's been working on it. I think as you have heard, how long have you been here?
6 months.
6 months. So he's catching on quickly. And he came in after Ray had retired, and Ray's assistant retired with him. So he walked into a really big hole and has stepped up. So I appreciate that. We'd be glad to take any easy questions that y'all have. No, we'll take we'd love to answer questions.
I don't really have one other than I appreciate the presentation and knew it was coming. So thank you for how you put that together. But I'll open it up to questions. Amen. Well, you may have answered everybody's, so thank you Senator Hickman.
So basically when it comes to commissioners and judges' salaries, you're saying that the funding is there. There's just a mechanism we need to place in
Yes, sir.
the statute that would give you spending authority to use the money that's there.
Yes, sir. And I will say that,
Well, but you're requesting an increase. Am I correct in that?
we're,
Not just a change in language.
no, we are request the salary increase.
Right.
And yes, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. We are asking for and trying to justify an increase. It's been 13 years since anything
Which is
significant.
which is 5%.
I think at this juncture of the budget.
Okay.
But again, both House, Senate, and the governors have signed it. It's been approved and we weren't getting it. And at first really couldn't figure out what was going on. It just didn't make any sense. And so what really happened, and Senator, I remember when all these positions were line itemed in the budget with an amount, not names, but the positions. That went away about 2012, which is about the time that everything changed in the building. And so that's why it was lost on me. All of a sudden it was different. Well, the reason it's different is y'all don't have to go through and look at every salary. You now just look at our whole budget and then approve the salary increase, but it has to have specific language to do it. That's why the last time that it was in writing was in 2013. 13 years ago, it was there. And then since then, and it's not just us, it's everybody. Every agency at one time was by line item. It would have, workers' comp, chairman, commissioner, judge, and then 2 or 3 pages. I remember it being that way. So anyway, yes, sir, Senator, I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question the first time, that is it. We are asking for the same type of increase we've asked for the last 4 years, maybe more. The difference is this time we're asking for you to approve it and to put that language in that will give us the authorization to actually spend it.
All right. Thank you.
I'll just add one
Oh.
thing. Appendix B gives the current salary, the market according to SEC Square, and the discrepancy in our proposal. So it kind of sums it up in a Excel spreadsheet in Appendix B.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for your service. We appreciate what y'all do. Thank you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And with that, we'll adjourn the subcommittee. We do have meeting tomorrow on our other agency.